Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the Voices of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Tina Clark. I'm a shamanic Reiki master teacher out of the Charleston, South Carolina area. And today's guest is Alicia Farricielli.
Yes, you got it.
I got it right. And she is an inner child specialist. And this is something I can't wait to talk about. I've used my own kind of guided way for my clients to connect with the inner child. And today she's going to explain why this is so important, and also how every single one of us needs this with no exception. How to heal past wounds. We're going to focus on self-worth, and maybe she can share some exercise where we can begin our own inner child healing. So welcome to the show, Alicia.
Thank you so much, Tina, for having me today. I'm super excited. Inner child work is such my passion. Everybody says I light up when I start talking about it, all the things. So I'm really excited to dig into this today.
I love talking about holistic healing and all of this too. So good thing, because I'm hosting a show on it. But
much needed.
Exactly. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how did you get in to become a inner child healing specialist?
Yeah, that's such a great question. When I was born, maybe I was born into this world and that's what I decided I wanted to do, but I didn't know this at the age of 4 and 5 when I was starting kind of the anxiety and suffering. So I work with clients, primarily work with a lot of I do work with some men, but I primarily work with women to build their self-confidence and self-worth, their empowerment. And a lot of times that's tied into inner child work. So I call myself kind of inner child specialist because I found that about 90-something% of everyone's issues, I want to call them problems, or their struggles that they're going through is tied into something that's tied into the inner child. And so we start to heal the inner child, we start to be able to blossom a little bit better and we're showing up for the world and showing up for ourselves on a whole different level. So I take people back to my childhood. I was a very conservative, super religious background. My father was a preacher of a certain denomination. I call him denomination of a Christian faith. So I grew up in an extremely strict household. My voice was very severed down to didn't really have a voice. I had to behave a certain way. I had to act a certain way. I had to be a certain way. Had to believe a certain way. And so there was a lot of fear-based inside of this particular religious background that I have. And so I grew up from mother's womb in. And it's funny because I just was doing some work on myself. I had a friend doing some work on me this past a couple of weeks ago in Sedona. And so when I came into the world, I didn't even know if I wanted to come into the world because I knew how unsupported I was going to be. And so I almost died in my mother's womb, which was very fascinating to go back into, to rediscover that about myself. So that's a fear that was put inside of me. So I went through my childhood just very anxious, very afraid. I mean, I'm looking back at photos. I'm like, I'm just clenched up like this. So afraid of doing something wrong. And so that brought into my teenage years where I just decided to rebel against everything because I had so much anger inside of me. So I had not only my childhood was very fearful and very kind of just not very happy. I mean, I had very happy moments, and I'm not saying that I grew up in a family that didn't have certain supportive aspects to it. So I don't want to give that impression to it. But I grew up very fear-based and very nervous, and then turned into anger when I was in my teenage years. Then I get into my early adult years, and I'm just on this train of like trying to prove myself to everyone. And so this goes on in my 30s. And so I think it was probably late 30s to early 40s. I finally hit the thing and I was like, this is not working for me at all. I don't even want to be here in this earth anymore. This is a continuous of what my journey is going to be. So as I started to kind of I basically cried out to the universe. I was like, God, I was like, help me here. Like, give me some support. And so it happened. So I started to see things a little differently. So I started on this path of just learning to heal myself. And of course, with help with some therapists and some other coaches along the way. But a lot of this was work that I did inside. I already had all the information on myself, and I was coming really into truth. And so a lot of the work that I was doing was in preparation for what I'm doing now. But as I started to heal, I got to a certain point to where I was thinking there's still something missing in part of this. There's a missing puzzle piece. And so, of course, as universe works, this term inner child came in, along with some shadow work, because we all need that too, which I tie both of those in together because I think it's all still inner child work. So I started to dig into, and I was like, oh, little Alicia was the one who was screaming out for attention. She's trying to prove herself to the world. She didn't feel loved. She still had all this fear inside of her. And so what if I can come around and heal her? So intuitively, of course, by that time, I started receiving intuitive messages, started connecting to my guides, connecting to my higher self. And so as I was doing that, they were guiding me through the process that I take clients through now. And I can tell you, it took me probably about a year of this work, and I'm a whole different person. I have more compassion for people and for myself. And the more work that I do, and the more we actually work on ourselves, the more worthiness I have inside of myself. So I have a picture of that sitting by my meditation area, and I just look at this little girl. I'm like, before I'd be like, oh, this little girl, just whatever. It was me as a child. Now I look at her, I'm like, you're the most precious thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I just love on her. And I tear up and I cry over her. And I treat her like she was my own child, which I have children, but I treat her as she's one of my own children. And I just love her so much, and see how much compassion, and I see how much beautiful things that she was bringing into the world that just got shoved down from under child. I'll call mine more trauma in certain ways, but I work with people on their wounds. So there's so many wounds that happen, so many things that was connecting to this desire to prove my worthiness in the world, which led to stress and burnout.
So what's your process like? How do you begin working with someone that needs inner child healing? And how do you explain it to that person, that may not be familiar with this at all?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back through, and let's talk about what the inner child is. The inner child to me is that little person inside of you, that little child. I say take it back for ages. Usually people can remember around 3-4 years old. If you can go further back, that's fantastic. But 4 to 6, 7, 8 years old, that's your inner child. And so imagine yourself as you were that inner child. Most children, I would say all children, come into the world with an innocence and a freedom to them and creativity, and the world's at their shoulder. They're coming to conquer the world in their own little ways. What happens is we have parents, we have teachers, we have society, we have friends, we have other family, members, peers, all these things telling us, no, you cannot be that. You can't do that. You cannot be that person. You have to be the certain way. You want to survive in life, you have to be the certain way. You want my approval in life, you have to be the certain way. And so there's so many polar opposites to what that could be. But that starts to diminish our creativity, our innocence, our fun, our joy, because we're stuck in the box. We're put into a box. And so the point of the inner child work is to get yourself out of this box and to realize that's not who you are. We are not tied to our jobs. We are not tied to our family members, all this stuff. It's not who we are. Who we are is our deep soul and connected. And so when we start to work with inner child, that's kind of what that is. The steps I take my inner clients through is, first we have to connect with that inner child. And so there's through meditation, through a lot of meditation. Even if they're not meditators, we still connect with the inner child through that. Sometimes it's taking a piece of picture or something that reminds them of their inner child and speaking to it, kind of like I do in the mornings when I talk to my little girl and her picture. So we're going to connect with that inner child. But the thing is, when we connect, we are not going to judge any feelings. We're going to allow these feelings to come up, because feelings that are inside of you are stuck, almost like you have stuck feelings. And so we're going to allow the anger. We're going to allow the hurt. We're going to allow the joy, any joy that you're feeling at the time. We're going to allow all these emotions to come up and to feel these emotions and let them process through. And so once we get connection to that, I guess the second one is we're going to have conversations. We're going to listen. And that's kind of where the emotions start to come up. We're going to have a deep conversation. And this could be a conversation 5 minutes a day. It could be an hour-long conversation, however long it needs for you to connect to that inner child. Because the inner child needs to feel safe. So what do children want? Safety and love. If you give a child safety and love, they're going to thrive. Of course, their physical needs need to be met, but that's also part of the safety feature of it. So safety. So we're going to make it feel safe. So when you're doing this work, it's super important to do this in a very safe environment where you can come into yourself and connect with your inner child, and both of you can feel safe doing this. So that's the first most important thing. So when we start to make the child feel safe, we do this by listening to it, letting it be authentic, not judging. And we're not going to tell it what it needs to do. We're just going to say, I'm here for you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to let you tell me exactly what it is. And then after that, they get all that out. Then we're going to literally almost put your hand or give yourself a hug, and you're talking to your inner child and tell the inner child what happened to you was not right. You have every right to be angry. Feel the anger. Feel all the things you need to feel about this. Let's get angry about it. But now I want you to know that this goes into the fourth step, or the third, kind of the third or fourth step, is we're going to reparent. Is we're going to let the inner child know that I'm your parent. I can handle all this stuff now. Let's say your inner child was mad because they had to take up for a parent's responsibility. We're going to let that inner child know, you know what, right now, I'm going to take that responsibility off of you so you don't have to do that. And you know what? Now it's mom or dad's time to take their own responsibilities off. And we're going to set those boundaries, of course, and let them deal with that, because now we take our own responsibilities. And so your inner child, a lot of times that happens, your inner child's going through, you take responsibility for your partner, or maybe they're still taking responsibility for their mom, or they're having to save the day. They're caretakers for everybody in every situation. And so we're going to be able to release that off of them, because that's no longer their responsibility. Their responsibility is to be the playful, joyful, creative portion of yourself. And so just their responsibility is to allow their creativity to flow into play. And that ties into the last step that I take them through, is we now start to play. So I tell people, think about when you were, say, 5 years old. What did you want to be? What did you desire? Did you love basketball, softball? Go do those things. If you're physically able. If you're not, enjoy it on TV. Find a way to do that. You want to be a ballerina. Maybe you don't take ballet lessons at this point in your life, and maybe you do. I think you should if you're able to. But maybe you go and you watch ballet and you get back into the things that brought you joy as a child. I'll use an example. A lot of people love especially boy. My son loved Batman. So I would tell him to go dress up, maybe not have to dress up like Batman, but if you guys want to, that's fantastic. I always want people to send me pictures of that, because I think it's absolutely amazing. I will cheer you on. But if you don't have you're not quite have the confidence to do something like that, or not able to, then what are the characteristics of Batman? He's protective. He was strong, confident. So start to portray the characteristics of it. Superwoman, what was she? She was just this confident being, and she was very caring and concerned for other people. So be those qualities, because that's really what you wanted to be. You didn't want to be the red cape. You really wanted those qualities in your life. So that's bringing out the joy. So tell people, try to find something joyful to do every single day. If it's 5-10 minutes a day, find that joy. If it's taking a walk in nature, whatever it is that brings you joy, bring that back, because we need that balance in ourselves.
Yeah, so when you're talking about Batman, I'm thinking about who I looked up to as a child, and you're gonna laugh. It's Miss Piggy.
Love it.
I was a little obsessed with Miss Piggy, and I used to watch the Muppet Show every night. It was on 7 p.m., Channel 4 or whatever it was. And, if you missed it, you missed it. Unless you stuck that VCR tape in. But like Miss Piggy, she's feisty.
Yeah.
She loves her man,
Yeah.
And it's so funny that, I need to channel my Miss Piggy more, maybe.
Yeah, I love Miss Piggy. She's fantastic. She was probably one of my favorite. I think I can't remember my favorite character was. I have to go back and look and see, but I used to watch the Muppets too.
Yeah, and she just owned herself. Like, this is what I want.
Yeah.
This is what I don't want. Nobody's coming in here and taking my place or pushing me aside. Yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of your process, I've used inner child work with my clients. And what I've done is usually it's someone that had parents that didn't really provide for them very well, especially emotionally.
Yeah.
And then they just are very hurt
Mhm.
because of it and they can't move past it. So when I'm usually doing during a Reiki session and they're laying down, and to me the inner child is in the heart
Mhm.
chakra. That's where
Yeah.
the inner child
Yeah.
resides. And so depending on their abilities, some of them could be clairvoyant. They could see things, when they meditate, or maybe not. Maybe it's just a knowing or a feeling. You
Yeah.
could do that too. And then I always ask them, go into your heart and look at what your inner child looks like.
Yeah.
Like, what age are they? What are they doing?
Yeah.
Sometimes the inner child is playing. Sometimes the inner child is shut down and sitting down with crossed arms, mad, or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And then ask them, you're an adult now, and you're going to go in there and you're going to go talk to your inner
Yeah.
child. Get to know them, tell them who you are, and then tell them that you're here to help them be safe or play or whatever they need.
Yeah.
And then I say, let the inner child be the leader. And if they want to go to a place like a playground, go to the playground with them.
Yeah.
So we do all of this. And
Yeah.
then it's just spending time and acknowledging and
Mhm.
validating. And if you ignore your inner child, it's going to come out in really dysfunctional ways.
Absolutely. It doesn't go away. People think, oh, I've ignored it and shoved it down. No, that is your inner child. Road rage.
Yes.
I mean, that's a classic example. I mean, I have sometimes road rage too. I'm not going to say that I don't. I know it's my inner child telling me there's not enough time for you to get somewhere. And so then I can have conversations and start to calm myself down because I'm aware of that. But if we're not aware of it and we're shoving it down, it's like I tell a example. A 3-year-old, if a 3 or 4, say 3-year-old is not getting attention, does it just go away?
No.
Maybe, but it's sitting in a corner pouting, energetically giving you attention, like it's not going away.
No, they're going to do
They're
worse.
gonna come back.
They're going to scream. They're going to throw a tantrum.
Yeah.
The other day I don't know where I was, out and about, and this girl, she was sitting in the shopping cart and she just started screaming. Oh, I remember, I was at a festival and she was in like her little, God, I can't, stroller.
Yeah.
And she just started screaming her head off. And I looked at her and she was completely shut down. Like she had had enough. I don't know if it was nap time. She was tired. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the 3-year-old.
Yes. That is what your inner child is doing if you're not paying attention to it. Now you could be giving your inner child love and not be calling it that, or even acknowledge, really realizing what you're doing. So I'm not saying that everybody out there is not taking care of their inner child. There are people who are and not even aware of it. But most of us are not doing that. We are ignoring our inner children. I mean, look at the world right now. Look at our leaders. Look at our everybody that's out there fighting against each other. It's like I look at them like a bunch of inner children that are fighting
Yes.
against each other. And this is what it creates. So what would happen if we all started to heal our inner child, at least paid attention to it? Imagine
Yeah.
a different world we would live in. And that's how important it is to do the work.
And if we don't heal our inner child or connect with it, are we stuck at that maturity level?
I think yes, I think so. In certain ways, so maturity levels, so many different aspects. Like people think maturity is you pay your bills on time, you keep a job, you wake up, you take care of your kids, you keep them alive. I'll put it that way, and you hold down your job, and you brush your teeth, and you keep a clean home, and you do what everybody else wants you to do. People assume that's maturity. That's being a responsible adult. Okay, that's responsibilities, yes. But that's not being a responsible adult. A responsible adult is one that takes care and acknowledges and tries to heal themselves through everything. A responsible adult doesn't blame their parents or their situation or anything else that's going on. They don't do that. Responsible adults take responsibility for their own life. That's what I think a mature adult is. You take total responsibility for everything that you do, you say, you breathe, everything comes out of you. That is your responsibility. You have so many choices, and it's amazing. That's why we have such great free will, such an amazing thing, as we can wake up in one day and decide, I'm going to be a different person today. You could wake up one day and decide, I'm going to start the pattern and I'm going to work on stopping this pattern in my life. That's maturity. And that's why you see so many, I guess people that hit in their latter years, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're looking back on their lives and they're seeing things like in a whole different light, because yes, you have matured in certain ways, but think about it. Majority of 70, 80-year-olds are not stressing about what 30 and 40, 20, 30, 40-year-olds are stressing about. They have the same responsibilities. Maybe they don't have children responsibilities anymore, but they have the same responsibilities. Do you see half of them not stressing out about certain responsibilities? Because they have matured enough to.
They're stressing about other things, though.
They are.
They're constantly talking about all their aches and pains, which I completely believe that makes you older and unhappy and all of those things. And then all they talk about is their latest doctor visit or.
Very true. That's why I came back. I was like, okay, half of them. I was like, wait, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I'll say half. Yeah, they are definitely. But it's also what's currently not making them in their comfort level. So it's bringing you out of comfort. And I think a lot of one of the biggest things is, yes, when we get older is kind of to go over rabbit tangent a whole bit. When we get older, yes, it's very important for us to take care of ourselves physically, but we have to take care of ourselves mentally, because it's so much harder when you're older to start to change your mindset patterns, because our brain works fascinating ways, but it works to protect us. So if we're not working on the certain portions of our brain to start these changes and to be adapting to change, then when we get older, it's going to be much harder to do that. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's just harder to do that. And so I think it's very, very important for people in their 20s to 50s, 60s to start to work on the healing of themselves, work on their brain powers to keep. And of course, your physical health is really, really important too. But people put so much emphasis on physical health, they're not really putting it on emotional and mental health. What are we seeing in a generation now that's the great grandparent, greater grandparent generation?
The boomers.
Boomers. I didn't want to call them out. If you're a boomer listening, I love you anyway. I have boomer parents. We have boomer family. Yeah, I love you. But what are we seeing now is that they grew up with a generation of parents who didn't acknowledge their emotions or feelings. They didn't know how to process those. They pushed them to our generation. I'm not sure how all you are. I'm 45, so they pushed them to at least to my generation.
Yes. And even us, like Gen X, we have this reputation of being very rough and tough and everything. And
because we were told to toughen up.
Mm-hmm.
We were told
I was literally told, you are too sensitive.
Yes, all the time. You're too emotional, Alicia.
Yeah.
There's nothing to cry about. Just toughen. That literally, was fall down, cry. And it's so it was funny. I was like, we were doing a hike in Sedona a couple weeks ago, and there's this little boy who fell down and hurt his knees, and his dad jerked him up. He was probably brown, maybe younger than me, but jerked him up and told him, "You're fine, you're okay," and kept on walking. I was like, this is what keeps inner child things going on, and keeps emotions stuck inside adults, because instead of letting him to process that and say, you know what, that ride must have really, really hurt. You want to cry for a little while? Let them allow you to cry the emotions out, because it's probably not really naturally painful, but it scared him. And so now he's told that he's not allowed to be scared. He's not allowed to fall down and mess up, because he tripped over stairs. And he told him this is what happens when he had a water bottle in his hand. This is what happens when you hold your water bottle too. So he's told he can't do multiple things. All the messages that were given at that moment. And I can't say I didn't do that with my kids too, because, we all make mistakes, and obviously we're not all perfect parents. But those emotions that he allowed told the old boy to shut off was very hurtful to that. And we don't think about that as parents Or think about that as, treating other children and letting them process their emotions. The only reason why he would continue to cry is to get the attention he's desiring for it.
Yeah, and I think the boys get the short end of the stick
Yeah.
because even in my own family, I've heard the father say, "Stop crying.
Yeah.
Don't cry." Even if the child's in pain, you're in pain when you're crying or you're
Yes.
releasing, you
Yes.
know?
That's all crying is really. Crying is such a good thing. I have crying sessions now. I love them. I'll just put on I need to release some emotions. I'll just cry and get them out. And let me tell you, what feels good after you cry? The release. You feel relieved after you're finished with that. And then you can move on. Emotions are not bad. Emotions are what keeps us in survival. Emotions were given to us. We have to adapt and use our emotions. Now we can be too emotional, but usually that's because we were not allowed to process our emotions at a correct, healthy way.
Yeah, and then when it's been suppressed or told, dismissed,
Yeah.
you end up not even knowing what you're feeling. That's the sad
Yeah.
thing. There's been times I've talked with people and they've told me, about their history, and I said, how does that make you feel? I don't know. What are you feeling right now? I don't know.
Yeah. It's the numbness.
Hmm. And they can't even distinguish between sadness, depression, irritation, the nuances of emotions as well.
Yeah. And then you think about it, it's kind of going off that, as we're classifying any type of sadness as instant depression. We're
Yeah.
classifying it anything that causes some fear that we can as anxiety. And I'm not at all discrediting those two things because I've suffered with those myself. But we're just classifying everything as lack of focus is automatically ADHD, which I've been diagnosed with too. But we classify all these things, especially in children now, because we don't, as adults, don't know what the emotions are to classify them as. We can't teach the children what emotions they're feeling because we don't know. How can you teach somebody sadness if you don't know sadness? How can you teach a child joy if you don't know joy in yourself? I see so many people walking around just so depressed and so upset, and they're just numbed out. Our lives are supposed to be full of emotions. We come here to enjoy the sadness portion of it. And by enjoy, I mean you really can enjoy that because you can see the blessing behind all that. That's what makes us human. And it makes our experiences so much richer, as having these emotions. But we have to process them. If that's anything take away, we have to process our emotions.
And so I want to go back to the road rage because I think this is really important that everybody's getting in their cars and they're angry, and all this anger is misplaced.
Yeah.
Being angry at somebody cutting you off, that's not actually why you're mad.
Right.
There's somebody you're angry at that you haven't been able to express that anger.
Yeah.
And it's in you, it's in your aura, in your body, and it's coming out, and you're taking it out on an innocent person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So find out why you're angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You go down the list and keep looking at it, and then contact Alicia for inner child healing.
Yeah, contact me. If you can't figure it out, we'll push you through some meditation. We'll do so.
Or
We'll figure it out. I
or
know how to get people to go really deep.
or come see some me for Reiki,
Yes.
and we'll try to figure it out, or at least clear it out of your emotional body and your
Yeah.
aura, because it's in there. It's not going anywhere. It's percolating,
Yeah.
and you're out there cutting people off and swearing. And this is not like, should not be normal. This is not normal behavior.
Right. But it has been classified as normal behavior.
It's not normal, and it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
So I saw another interesting video on social media, and I wish I knew who this person was, but they said that most people are stuck. That's why I asked you about the maturity level. Most people are stuck between 8 and 12. And I don't think it's that bad, but I do see a lot of people who are acting like teenagers still.
Yeah. Yeah, I think emotionally, I think we're living in a world now that we have a lot of 8 to 12-year-olds. We have a few teenagers, and we have a few actually living in their maturity levels of their adults. And by maturity level, the saying, always be like a kid. We want those childlike curiosity and fun, free flow. We want that portion of us to stay. But the way that we express and hold on to our emotions and process through those, I think most people are at 8. Probably, I don't even know. 8. Sometimes I'm giving people more credit with 8, with 8 years old. I would say probably 8 to 10 years old. There, I see a lot of people stuck in that process.
Yeah.
I think you do have some in the teenage process that know that this is not how I'm supposed to behave, but they don't know how to. They don't know how to behave. So you think about teenagers as they know they're not supposed to behave this way, but they don't know how to they're not quite understanding how to behave to come into adult maturity, emotional maturity.
Yeah. So you remember when in college, you'd party and have drinks and do all that with our 50-year-olds still doing that. And to me, it's just puzzling.
I'm in Florida. I see it every day. I
But
mean,
I
I'm
mean,
literally in yes. I mean, that's
if
why
you're 50 or 40 or whatever, why are you still getting drunk? Why are we still doing this
numbing the emotions.
behavior? Yeah.
It's
Why
the numbing
haven't you
behavior.
grown up?
Yeah. That's part of the maturity, of emotional maturity is know that you don't have to have those type of substances to have fun. Now, I'm not saying
Mhm.
that I'm not opposed to drinking. I mean, if I'm getting bad personal level, I'll have a glass of wine or two, but I'm not going to get like tipsy. Like
You're not having 5 drinks a day in order to function.
I couldn't function off of 1 drink a day.
I would be asleep after 2,
Yeah,
so there
I'm
would
saying
be
I
no.
can't function that way. My body doesn't function that way. It hasn't ever, even in teenage year, but maybe more college years, maybe a little more. But they're numbing out. They're numbing out because you get to a point, you reach your age, and it's like you reach in your 50s or 60s, and you're realizing your life is, if you're lucky, halfway over. If not, you have, and so that's very scary when you're not a maturity level to know that. I actually look, and it's actually something that came across. I felt a relief off of this in the past month. Is I look forward to getting older in certain ways because I know I'm going to take care of my body and my emotions. And I look forward to those golden years of my life, knowing that I can look back and help more people and guide them that way. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're still acting like teenagers or college kids at 50 or
or
60.
or 8-year-olds.
Okay, behaviors of a college kid because you're allowed to drink in the United States, but then you get maturity level of an 8-year-old. That's a very sad place to be. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not criticizing. I don't say this from a criticism placed to these people, to people that are feeling that way, but they don't have to feel that way. And no, it's not an overnight process. It's again, the older you get, the more you push off. You're like, I'm too old. I'm too old to do this. You're never too old. It just takes a little more effort to unbreak
Yeah.
those patterns inside of your brain. That's all it is. And so once you can start to learn how to break the patterns inside your brain and to think a little differently, then the maturity level comes because it's already everything that already needs to be that mature adult is already inside of them. You're born into that way. You're born in with knowledge. I'm a big believer of past lives and stuff. So I'm been like, you're born in with all this knowledge and all these things that you've already experienced. Even if you're a very young soul, you still have some type of experience, some kind of knowledge coming in. I think, and actually been reading a book, Lives After Life, something like that. And so made a very, very big thing is there are so many, we're seeing a lot of this with the older, say the boomer generation, some in our Gen X, Gen Z, whatever that is, and the millennials and on. But I'm seeing more maturity come in through some of the younger generations. I think they're the older souls that are coming in because I think
Mm-hmm.
we had a big impact of younger souls, beginner souls that came in because there were so many out there. They needed all these lessons. So they came in. So I think that's a lot of what's going on energetically, a lot of what's going on in our world, a lot of what's going on in their society, in that Because think about this big boom. They call them the boomers for a reason. There's just such an influx of beginner souls that they just lessons learned. So they're either learning their lessons, which I beg to differ on some stuff. And then, but I'm not bashing on boomers. I love boomers. I love them. Like I do. A lot of friends that are in that generation, and I have, family and definitely. But we're seeing a lot of them that they're not getting it. They're not getting it at all.
I think they tried because the boomer generation, they were the hippie generation. I think they really tried, but they got sidetracked. And then here's the thing about getting stuck. Don't get stuck, because a sign of maturity and evolving is change, and that you are changing.
Yes.
You never stay the same. And if you think you're going to stay the same and you figured it all out, the universe will teach you otherwise.
Yeah. And that's what's happening.
The lessons get harder and harder. They'll smack you in the face and kick you in the ass until you get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you're going to come back and learn it again. And again and again.
Oh,
and again.
I don't want to do that.
I'm like, tell me everything. I'm willing to change right now. Because I come back, it's going to be an awesome life. I really do have an amazing, awesome life. I'm not I really do. I've designed an awesome, amazing life. But I want a life of gravy ease. If I come back in.
Grace and ease is awesome.
Grace and ease is all I want. No.
Well, I think a lot of our biggest teachers are the people teaching us how not to be.
Yes.
And you learn, if you are paying attention and you'll learn really fast that way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people in service to others, like you and me, we have really tough childhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had really tough things that we needed to heal, not just for ourselves, but for our families.
Yeah.
And that's really a high calling and mission.
It is. And we have to give ourselves so much compassion and really cheer ourselves on that we chose to come in and do that. That's kind of where I get back before is I have had such a different outlook on life, knowing that I did not want to come in. My soul was like, do I just call it quits right here in this I was 2 weeks late. Do I call this quit, or do I go ahead and come in? And so I have to give myself a lot of grace and compassion and through all of this, because I chose to come in and to do all this work, knowing what the emotional toll was going to be on myself, on this human life. And I was not very unsupported in doing everything I was doing. So I knew that. And so we have to take and I take responsibility for that. That was a big thing. It was like, oh, I have to take responsibility. I chose to do this. I chose all this stuff. And when we start to take responsibility for our actions, we can start giving ourselves more compassion. The people who don't give themselves compassion are the ones that are blaming everyone else. But when we learn to say, this is my life, I own this, everything I've done in my life is for my best good, because I chose to do this. I chose this life. Not everything that came in was right, or it was a good thing, especially for people who have been in such major abusive situations. And I'm not at all saying that was okay for that to happen.
Because other people have free will, and
they
could have acted better. They could have handled it better. So remember, you did choose to come, but they made their own choices that they are responsible for.
Absolutely. So you give yourself some compassion. And I think the biggest key to healing the inner child is forgiveness. And I like to define forgiveness, because people have been taught forgiveness is you forget it and you let them continue to do things over and over again. And they can say forgiveness, and that's not what it is. Forgiveness is releasing those ties and saying, this is not my story anymore. I'm going to release them out to the world. I'm not going to hold this grudge against them anymore, because it's damaging me. And so it doesn't mean that we go back into the same situations. It doesn't mean we allow them to repeat those patterns. But we offer them grace for the fact that what they did. We're going to give you some grace, not that you earned it or deserve it, but because by me holding this against you and me having this energetic tie to you, and this anger and this hurt and stuff is not helping me and my soul develop. That's all forgiveness is. So we can understand that. Now, forgiveness is not forgetting, because we were born with a brain that remembers things for a reason. Our brains are for survival, right? So when we understand that we're not going to forget it, we don't have to forget it. But we're going to, every time that comes up, we're going to be like, you know what? I've made a choice to send them some love from afar, because they obviously were hurting and they need extra love. And I'm going to be the bigger person, the bigger soul, the bigger heart. And I'm going to I'm going to forgive them for that. Again, that's what forgiveness is. It's not what we've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness. That's all it is cutting that energetic tie and allowing their souls, willing to the release out to the world.
Right. And it's really just leaving the past in the past and moving on, and, with the right, I'm can't think of the word right now, boundaries, right boundaries, because you love yourself too. And you don't want to expose yourself to those situations anymore.
Yeah. There's a certain time you need to cut the ties. I mean, we are in a we're living in a world where it's like black and white. You cut ties no matter all the stuff. No, there are times, and that's only something you know intuitively, whether or not you need to cut the ties with that person or not. If they're continuing to hurt you and it's what's best for you to be able to develop and grow and heal, then yes. But we don't cut ties out of anger. We don't cut ties out of hurt. That's why their forgiveness is so important. I don't have a relationship is very open with my father anymore, because I had to cut those ties. I love him deeply. I send him love and grace and compassion. That I had to cut the ties because it was in my best interest for my healing. Mm-hmm. Now, I cut the ties beginning with out of hurt and anger, but then I realized that was not doing me any good. So to continue to cut the tie, to keep the tie, I had to forgive. I had to release that out. And now I have to do what's best for my personal self, to be able to heal and to grow and to be able to help other people, because that's my mission in life. And it's so relieving and freeing when you're able to do that.
Yeah. And to be of service will get you out of depression and anxiety. There's the secret sauce. And then move your body.
Yes. You're moving those emotions out.
Yes. Get those endorphins too, so you can feel good.
Yes.
Yeah. So Alicia, I loved talking with you today. Thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom. I think there's a lot here for people to ponder and think about. And if you're listening, think about, what is your maturity age? Be honest with you.
Yeah.
And yourself. And if you want to grow up, if you want to change, you have to look at the things that you've been ignoring and denying, which is also called shadow work.
Yes.
So Alicia, can you share where people can contact you? And if you have any projects, books, mention those too.
Yeah, they can contact me. Best way is on my website. Alicia, the first thing, last name, AliciaFarricielli.com. Reach out to me. There is a book a call link on it. A lot of my website does have stuff about emotional intelligence, but I do emotional intelligence and inner child work sync together as well. My book, I'm in the process of writing, so I was hoping by the end of the year, but it's, again, another digging into the inner child work. So it will be available in the next 24 months. I can promise myself that. I do have it. I'm also hosting some retreats. So if you're a woman who's looking to really dig into these deep, deep emotions and do some heavy work, it's going to be a super, super, super inviting time. Reach out to me. Send me an email through my website, or you can find me on Instagram. First name, last name. There's only probably one of us out there with this name. To send me a message through that, I'll send you some information too. So I'm going to be hosting multiple ones of these. They're going to be very small, intimate, super affordable. I'm talking like I'm trying to keep these under $1,000 for accommodations and meals and everything we're going to get. So
I would be interested. I never stop my shadow work.
Yes.
Never. I mean, I might hit it hard for 6 months and be like, I need a break now.
Yes.
But then I'll go back into it.
Yeah. You'll be crying by the end of it. you'll be crying and have just like this amazing bond of new sisters that are, it's just
Yeah.
fantastic. So
I've been to retreats like that where I spent a week with a bunch of strangers, and by the end of it, we're
yes.
telling each other we all love each other.
Yes, because they all, it's amazing how all energetically everybody starts to line up. The people that need to be there will be there. And it's such a beautiful thing of just trust and faith, and it's wonderful. I love it. I love doing
Yeah.
these.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Alicia.
Thank you.